Right. 0 to 60 miles per hour. 3, 2, let's just go. A little bit of wheel spin there. Control yourself. And we have 8.17 seconds. That's not very good. Oh, right, I'm pulling a 7,000-pound trailer. This is an F-150 Lightning, an electric truck from Ford. If you ask the internet about this truck, they'll tell you, it's one of those electric trucks. They can't tow. But that couldn't be further from the truth. This is one of the best tow vehicles there is. Briefly. The problem with the extended range Lightning's battery is that it's only 131 kilowatt hours. In a small efficient car, that's a ton of energy, but this is a big boxy truck. The Lightning on the highway can achieve around 2 miles per kilowatt hour, which equates to a full charge range of around 260 miles, which is fine. But with a big boxy unaerodynamic trailer, like a cargo trailer or a camper or something upright like that, your efficiency can easily drop down to 1 mile per kilowatt hour, or even less on the highway. And at 1 mile per kilowatt hour, your range is now 130 miles. On a full charge, or just 90 miles from 80 down to 10%. If you've charged up at home and your destination is 100 miles or less round trip, you've got no issue. This is a fantastic tow vehicle. But on longer trips, the Lightning can charge from 10 to 80% in just under 40 minutes. So you could be looking at drive for 90 miles, charge for 40 minutes. Drive for 90 miles, charge for 40 minutes on repeat. Now that's doable, but it's not exactly convenient. And depending on where your destination is, it might not even be possible. And that's with the extended range battery. The standard range battery, which is what Tyler Hoover had, by the way, is less than 100 kilowatt hours. And with that small of a battery and a big boxy unaerodynamic trailer behind you, you could be looking at less than 100 miles of range from 100% to dead. Despite these issues, I've been wanting to get an electric truck for quite some time. And the reason is simple. Once you tow with an electric truck or just drive one in general, you won't want to go back to gas or diesel. It's just so good. And it's not just because there's a lot of power. Obviously, there is a lot of power, but also it's just so effortless. There's no gearbox, there's no turbo lag, there's no throttle delay. You just have smooth, linear, ample torque delivery all the way up to VMAX. You could be fully loaded and climbing a mountain and it doesn't feel like it cares at all. And when you go back down on the other side of the mountain, there's no riding your brakes, there's no worrying about warping or overheating your rotors. You're slowing down using the power of magnets and recharging your battery while doing so. It's fantastic. So after the first time I pulled a trailer with an electric truck, which was a Rivian pulling 2 battery packs on a trailer for no reason in particular, I knew I had to have one. But the majority of the use I have for my existing pickup is long distance towing. Now I'm typically not pulling giant boxy trailers, I'm typically pulling a car on a trailer which is lower profile and a little bit more efficient, but all the problems I stated earlier still definitely apply. So when I finally decided I really want to see what it's like to live with an electric truck, I really only have one choice. I bought a Silverado EV! Much like many of GM's other electric offerings, this shares nothing with the gas Silverado other than the name. And let's get this over with. Yes, it does look like an Avalanche or an obese Honda Ridgeline. And yes, it is a bit dirty. I didn't wash it. Let's look at a few specs and you'll see why this is an obvious choice for me. I'm going to show you a few other electric trucks available on the market, as well as their largest available battery pack size, their peak charge speed, their 10 to 80% charge time, their highest available EPA estimated range, and while all of these trucks are capable of different levels of efficiency, none of that matters so much when you throw a big boxy trailer on the back, so I'll list their range at a pessimistic 1 mile per kilowatt hour, both on a full charge and from 80 to 10%. First up, with not enough battery and Reynolds Wrap good looks, it's the Tesla Cybertruck. I'll remind you, the range extender battery has been canceled. Who could have seen that coming? Next up, designed by people who've actually used a truck before, it's the F-150 Lightning. Then, powered by dirt, granola, and $5 billion from Volkswagen, it's the Rivian R1T. And finally, the Silverado EV. You can see why I made the choice that I made. Even at an abysmal 1 mile per kilowatt hour, this thing can still go 150 miles on 70% of the battery. You can make the truck as efficient as you like, but when it comes to towing, you just need raw energy. And because this is the only electric truck that has specs to suit my needs, I didn't really care about the rest of it. I just had to tolerate it. Sure, Rivian's cooler, faster, a lot more impressive, etc., but What good is all of that if I don't feel like I can tow a car to Kansas or whatever without getting really annoyed with it? So I went with the Silverado. However, I'm happy to report that I do actually like this a lot. It's not as mind-blowing as a Rivian, but it's just so good and useful at doing work stuff. There are a few things I don't like about it, and two things in particular I really hate about it, but we'll get to that later. I've already used this a bunch. I hauled a diesel engine from Kansas to Georgia. I hauled a Tesla battery pack from Kansas back to home. I towed home a city car from eastern Kentucky. I towed 3 Volkswagen Cabrios to auction in one day. I've towed my Polestar all over the place. In fact, I used this to tow the Polestar back home from the dealership. This has already proven itself to be so useful. And yes, my gas F-150 already does all of that. This just does it better. And I like it more. And wow, my F-150, you put this empty trailer behind it, it feels like it wants to die. It feels so lethargic from just the weight of this empty trailer. But this, in the empty trailer, I have to remind myself that it's there. And because the battery is so freaking massive, there's no range anxiety. This towing the Polestar on this trailer has more range than the Polestar does on its own. At 75 miles an hour while towing the Polestar, I typically average 1.2 miles per kilowatt hour, and that works out to a full charge range of about 250 miles. This can't do that at 75 miles an hour. And yes, before you leave the comment, I know your gas truck can go 500 miles without stopping with a trailer. So can mine. I also have a gas F-150, but like I said earlier, I massively prefer this. You can have a different opinion, that's totally fine. But that's enough with numbers. Let's talk about the truck itself. This is a 24 model year Silverado EV 4WT. For the 24 model year, which was the first model year, there were 3 trim levels available. There was the 3WT, there was the 4WT. Quick tangent. The name for this letter is 3 syllables long, W. That ruins any abbreviation with a W in it immediately. For example, the abbreviation for World Wide Web has triple the number of syllables compared to the thing that it's abbreviating, and that's just dumb. So I propose from now on, we call this letter WE. WE. It's 1 syllable long and it matches convention. And if you think WE is a silly name, need I remind you, we already have a letter called P. As I was saying, for the 24 model year, there were 3 trims. There was the 3WT, 4WT, you'll get used to it, and the RST. The RST is the top trim spec with every option. And for the 24 model year, it was only available in black with the largest battery. And as you might have guessed, WT stands for work truck. This is the base trim, the no-frills contractor spec with a blacked out grille insert and vinyl seats. The 2 different levels, 3WT and 4WT, denote battery pack size. The 4WT has the utterly massive 210 kilowatt hour usable battery, while the 3WT has a positively microscopic 175 kilowatt hour usable battery. The EPA range is 390 or 450 miles. The tow rating is 10,000 pounds, but if you opt for the slightly smaller extended range battery pack, then the tow rating goes up to 12,500 pounds. Here's a quick run through of some of the differences between the RST and the work truck. 24-inch wheels, 18-inch wheels, light bar and body paint grille, no light bar, 4-wheel steering, 2-wheel steering, air suspension, coil springs, folding mirrors, a tailgate within a tailgate, a regular tailgate with a real handle, wraparound curved infotainment screen, Bezel Town, leather door inserts with contrasting stitching and a padded armrest. You're poor. Here's a painfully hard armrest to make you feel bad about it. Wide open Watts launch control mode. No drive modes. You don't get drive modes. Heated ventilated leather seats with contrasting stitching and piping and power adjustment in many different directions. Black vinyl. No heat, no ventilation, no power adjustment. It does go forward and back manually, but not up and down. Carpeted floors. Rubber floors. This has a midgate. I have no idea how this middle bit comes out. I think it does. No midgate, no removable window, just a wall, glass roof, steel roof, and much, much more. These 2 trim levels are very different. For the 25 model year, they introduced the LT trim, which is somewhere in between the work truck and the RST. The range and power specs of every trim level changed. They're introducing more trim levels later on in the year. Also later on in the year, they're introducing a standard range battery for the work truck that'll be about 120 kilowatt hours. And even later on, they're introducing a lithium iron phosphate battery for the work truck that, I don't know how big it'll be, but they're claiming 350 miles of range. Mine, as I already said, is the 4WT, the base spec with the big battery. I chose the work truck spec, not just because it was cheaper, although that's a big part of it. I just flat out couldn't afford the RST spec, but also because I don't want 24-inch wheels with rubber band tires on a truck. I don't plan to take this thing off-roading, but I'd like to be able to hit a rock without worrying about my rim exploding. And also, I don't want air suspension, four-wheel steering, a split-level tailgate, and lasers that shoot out of its nose or whatever. I just want a truck. Realistically, the LT trim is a better fit for me. It has some nicer materials, it has a few options that I'd like to have, but the LT trim wasn't going to work for me because it's not available at all with the massive max range battery pack. It's only available with the smaller extended range battery pack, and I don't want that. The massive battery is like the whole point of this thing. And the smaller battery doesn't just mean less range, it also charges slower because it's lower voltage. Okay, I haven't mentioned price yet, and that was on purpose because price is where this whole thing falls apart. The RST, the top spec with every option, has a sticker price of $100,000, fact check here. But this isn't an RST, it's a 4WT, the base spec. And you would expect, with how stripped down, decontented it is, to have a dramatically cheaper sticker price. Well, it doesn't. The sticker price of this stupid idiot is $80,000. 80 grand! That price could make sense for businesses, fleets, contractors, etc., especially when you consider in the dramatically cheaper running costs. But for a regular person? No regular person is going to want to spend $80,000 on a truck with manually adjusted vinyl seats and a poverty spec grill insert. It is absurd to have an interior that looks this cheap on a truck this expensive. Some of these material choices are probably ruggedization improvements for the work truck, like the rubber floor mats and maybe the vinyl seats, but other bits, like these entirely different screens, feel like they were deliberately designed to look cheap, so you'd be encouraged to go for one of the more expensive trim levels, with nicer materials and a higher profit margin. It's fine though, this interior doesn't really bother me. The only thing in here that really bothers me is the armrest on the door. It's hard plastic, unpadded, and painful. It's likely priced the way it is because of the gigantic battery. They probably couldn't make it any cheaper. At least it has some equipment you wouldn't expect to see on a normal base model work truck, like dual zone automatic climate control, power tilt and telescoping wheel, adaptive cruise control, 360-degree cameras, a full Android Automotive infotainment system complete with Google Maps and a bunch of other features, walkaway locking, automatic high beams, etc., etc. So given the high sticker price, it's no surprise the dealership I bought this from had 5 identical 4WTs on the lot, and they couldn't get rid of them. I didn't pay $80,000 for this, I paid $62,000. That's a pretty big discount, but that's still a lot of money. How can you afford this? Well, I sort of can't. I figured out a way to make this work in the short term, but I can't exactly afford to keep this. So I'll be selling it before the end of the year. This is for tax depreciation and a whole host of other reasons. I'm gonna have this and experience it for a year, make videos about it, and then it's going away. And don't go thinking that these videos will pay for this truck. They won't come even close to paying for this stupid thing. I will lose money on this. I'm just hoping to minimize those losses. And on that note, this video is sponsored by Factor. You know what Factor is. It's ready-to-heat meals delivered straight to your door. All you gotta do is pick your meal, slide off the cardboard cover, stab the film to vent it, and pop in the microwave for 2 minutes. And boom, you got a hot meal ready to go. This is creamy garlic chicken thighs and roasted mushroom. Wow, this is really good. Is that mashed potatoes? Oh my God. Here's a hot Factor tip for you. Any Factor meal with the main ingredient of chicken is gonna be a good one. But if chicken's not your thing, they also have keto, vegan, and other options to fit your dietary needs. Plus they have add-ons, like these cold pressed juices. If you want to try Factor for yourself, and I highly recommend you do, go to Factor75.com and use code 50AgingWheels at checkout for 50% off your first box plus free shipping. And again, that's Factor75.com and use code 50AgingWheels at checkout for 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. What is happening? What I had been telling everyone is that this is the slowest electric truck you can buy. But now that the single motor Cybertruck's a thing, that's no longer true. The RST has 750 horsepower and almost 800 pound-feet of torque. But the work truck, while it has the same physical motors as the RST, is software detuned down to 510 horsepower and just over 600 pound-feet of torque. I know that may still sound like a lot of power, but I haven't yet told you how much this weighs. 8,500 pounds. That's almost 4 metric tons, and over a ton of that is just battery weight. This thing's a real porker. And the motors are tuned in such a way that they don't deliver full power below about 45 miles an hour. It does kind of a soft start sort of thing. It's certainly not slow, and it is faster than most combustion trucks, gas or diesel, but it is slow for an electric truck. 0 to 60 with Pulsar and trailer with battery at 58%, go. For reference, my gas F-150 does 0 to 60 without a trailer in about 8 seconds. 10.2! That's actually a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. It hustles, it feels totally effortless and smooth, but it's probably not going to blow your mind. It's like driving an athletic whale or a sports barge. And this has the strongest regen of any EV I've ever experienced. I have to warn people before they get behind the wheel or they're going to throw me through the windshield when they let off the throttle. I've witnessed up to 320 kilowatts of regen. That's 430 horsepower of braking force through the motors. Something this has that my F-150 absolutely does not have while pulling a trailer, or even by itself, is passing power. You just stab it, and it starts accelerating. It's worth noting that because the two motors are fully independent from each other, it does torque steer a little bit when you stab on the throttle. Doesn't torque steer as much as this Lightning does, holy crap. This has four-wheel, fully independent wishbone suspension with coil springs. Not as nice as the air suspension of the RST trim, but this is still a surprisingly plush ride. Although I probably shouldn't be surprised by that, given how much it weighs. I was able to drive this and a gas Silverado back to back, and this has a dramatically nicer ride compared to a gas Silverado. The only thing letting it down are the seats. That's fine, the seats are comfortable, but the vinyl doesn't breathe at all. To quote Max Patton, they're passively heated. Aside from the soup-generating seats, this thing's a road-tripping machine! The EPA range of this is 450 miles. For the 25-mile year, they got that up to 490 miles. I'm at 55% right now, and it says I have 247 miles of range. Of course, that number's complete BS. Like with Tesla and Rivian, the range number in this is just the EPA range multiplied by the battery's state of charge percentage. It's a useless number. The real number is much more variable and probably a bit lower. If you put it in trailer mode, that range number will adjust down to a guess of what your range might be with a trailer, but it's a really bad guess. Based on my experience, at 80 miles an hour, this can achieve between 1.5 and 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour, which equates to a full charge range of about 310 to 360 miles. Slow down to 70 miles an hour, and this can do over 400 miles. And then stop and charge for 40 minutes and go another 300 miles. Or what I prefer to do, stop and charge for 15 minutes and go for another 150 miles. I want to talk more about the battery. While it may seem crude to just stuff the truck full of batteries, the engineering that went into it is actually really clever. GM's battery pack design, to save money, is modular. So everything from the Equinox EV all the way up to the Escalade IQ uses the same battery modules, just in a different quantity and configuration. And in the Escalade IQ, Sierra EV, Silverado EV, and Hummer EV, those battery modules are double stacked for maximum capacity. The upper and lower halves of this battery pack each form their own independent 400-ish volt battery. In normal operation, the motors, etc. operate at 400 volts, so these two halves are wired together in parallel to make the whole pack a 400 volt battery. But 400 volts won't cut it when it comes to DC fast charging, because most of the high-power chargers out in the wild are limited to 500 amps. And at 400 volts, that would mean a maximum charging speed of about 200 kilowatts, which when your battery's this big, that's not good enough. So for DC fast charging, some contactors physically reconfigure the two halves of the battery to be wired together in series, making the whole pack output 800 volts. ish, which is what allows the Silverado EV and everything else with this massive double stack battery to charge at 370 kilowatts. Like I said, this battery pack is modular, and what I've depicted here is the big Chongus max range battery pack with 24 modules. The slightly smaller extended range battery pack only has 20 modules. It's still double stacked and it still does the 400-800 volt switchover thing, but because there's 4 modules removed, it operates at a lower voltage, and therefore it charges at a slightly slower 310 kilowatts peak. Now the standard range battery that's coming later will not be double stacked. It will be a single layer, 12 modules, and it won't do the 400-800 volt switchover thing, and if I had to guess, it'll probably peak charge at around 185 kilowatts. This can also charge at Tesla superchargers, but because Tesla is so behind the times, there are still no 800 volt compatible superchargers. They're coming soon, but they don't exist yet. So at a Tesla supercharger, this will charge at 400 volts and peaks at only 180 kilowatts, which it only holds for about 10 minutes, then drops down to 150 kilowatts. Yeah, one downside of a battery this big and a vehicle this inefficient is that high power charging becomes really important unless you want to sit there forever. But an upshot of a battery this massive is cycle life. These batteries should last between 300 and 900,000 miles. These batteries are going to degrade from age before they degrade from usage. It has a frunk! It doesn't power open or close on the work truck model, but it does have soft close. F-150 Lightning owners like to blather on about how useful and amazing the frunk is, and I get it now. It's so useful. Although I gotta say the Lightning's frunk is just a lot bigger. I do wish there was a way to open this from the outside without using the key fob, but there doesn't appear to be a way to do that. The bed in this looks small because of this whole situation, but actually the bed in this is the same width and length as the bed in a Silverado 1500. The short bed, obviously. And of course, it wouldn't be an electric truck without a bunch of power outlets. There's a 120 volt 20 amp outlet in the front, one in the cabin, and back here there's 4 of them. In addition to that, there's also a 240 volt 30 amp twist lock plug back here. I can charge my EV from my other EV. Although one annoyance of this one is that I did charge my Polestar off of this Silverado and it worked great, but I had to turn the amperage down to 28 amps. At 29 amps, despite this being a 30 amp outlet, it tripped the breaker. Little side note about the outlets, they didn't work when I picked this thing up. And when I picked this thing up, there were only 20 miles on it, so they didn't work from the factory. I took it in for service a couple weeks after I got it to fix the outlets. The outlets work now, but how did it leave the factory like this? Did they not even check the outlets? The interior of this thing is utterly massive, particularly in the back seat. It is cavernous back here. Actually makes for a good lounge. I wrote the script for this video back here. Actually, not having the midgate turned out to be kind of a bonus because with the midgate, the rear seats fold forward, but without it, they fold back and up, leaving the entire floor wide open. Ignore all the trash back here. I could put so much cargo in here. The midgate's cool, but there's a little too much going on there, and I don't even know if I'd actually use it. Okay, let's talk about the 2 things I hate about the Silverado EV. Both have to do with charging. The first is the charge port location, which is all the way back here. This is fine if you're not pulling a trailer, but if you are, most rapid chargers aren't pull-through yet. So I either have to unhook the trailer, get really lucky, or my personal favorite option, block 5 stalls, just pull alongside and ruin everyone else's day. Why isn't the charge port in the front like it is for a Rivian and a Lightning? That's very convenient when you're pulling a trailer. You just nose into the charger. Sure, you're sticking out a little bit, but you don't have to unhook the freaking trailer. The second problem is, in my opinion, a glaring engineering flaw. I don't know how this made it to production, but it did. You can't have climate control on while rapid charging. It's charging at 293 kilowatts. Let's turn on climate control. 30 kilowatts. 30 kil. This is stupid. Let's turn that back off. And it'll climb back up to 300. And there we are, back up to 300 kilowatts. I've witnessed this multiple times. And this isn't just a Silverado EV problem either. I know this is also a problem with the Hummer EV and probably other GM models as well. Hopefully they fix this in the 25 model year, but I doubt it. And this irritates me, not because I have to turn off climate control while charging. That's a minor inconvenience. It irritates me because how many people, including owners, don't know about this problem and just think this charges like crap because they've been charging with climate control on. So if you're a General Motors electric vehicle owner, next time you charge at a rapid charger, maybe try turning off climate control and see if your speed improves. Also, make sure you precondition on the way to the charger. By the way, this has route planning and automatic battery conditioning via Google Maps, which is fantastic. Although it's 2025, every EV should have this. And in addition to that, it also has manual battery preconditioning, or as it's called in the menu, fast charge prep, to make it a little less confusing. You can tell it's working too, because you can watch the power draw ramp up. Because maybe the charger you're going to isn't in the nav yet. Or maybe you want to use something that isn't the built-in nav, like Waze or what have you. Every EV should have manual battery preconditioning, and almost none of them do. The infotainment in this is Android Automotive based, which means it has Google Maps built in, and I can do this. Set temperature to 69.
Got it. Changing the temperature to 69 degrees.
Well, it turned it on, but it set it to 72, so it was half right. GM made headlines a while back for announcing that all their future cars would not have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay anymore. This is an outrage! How can they do this? Here's the thing though, this has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay because they're going to remove them from the 25 model year and onward, and this is a 24 model year, so it has both of those things. While I'm here, the software in this is fine. It's perfectly snappy. It has all the features that I want. I'm not a huge fan of the design. I think it's a little bit busy, but it's fine. However, it's a little bit buggy. On the very first drive home from the dealership, Google Maps crashed 3 times. On the drive through Tennessee, Google Maps suddenly decided, hey, I noticed you're not on the highway anymore. You're driving 10 miles alongside of it through a field. So I pulled over and stopped to reboot the infotainment system, and then this happened.
Is this boot looping? What is it doing? What is this?
So I rebooted the infotainment again, and while it did stop boot looping or whatever it was doing, it still had no idea where it was.
It thinks I'm in Jackson, Tennessee. I'm not even in Tennessee.
But don't worry, it started working on its own about an hour later. One time the screen went completely blank. That was fun.
I'm still able to interact with it. I don't know what I'm pressing. But it's not showing me anything.
This doesn't have a start-stop button. When you get in, it turns off, and when you get out, it turns off. And it does do that most of the time. But if it fails to do that, there is a manual vehicle off button at the top of the screen. I said, now it's gone. It's still on. I was trying to demonstrate a feature. There it goes. Just had to open the door. Twice now, I've opened the door, noticed it didn't shut off properly, reached for the vehicle off button, and it wasn't there. So I had no way to turn the thing off. So I just had to lock it and leave it on while I went into Lowe's or whatever.
This is a new one. The main screen isn't turning off. I tried to turn it off, but the vehicle off button went away. It's not there anymore. So I can't turn it off. Okay, we're gonna go inside and leave it.
And there's a bunch of smaller issues too, like sometimes the trip stats screen gets stuck on the splash screen, so I can't view my trip meter anymore. Sometimes the button to turn on the outlets when the vehicle is off doesn't do anything, etc., etc. I want to say that these software issues aren't all that bad, but I've only had this truck for 2 months and I've already accumulated a massive list of issues. It needs to be better. Oh, and the My Chevrolet app is hot trash. It is garbage. And that's the Silverado EV, a big, excessive, silly thing. Now, I guarantee in 10, 15, 20 years, however long it takes for energy density of batteries to double or triple, that we're going to look back on this and it's going to look hilarious and ridiculous. But for now, if you want an electric truck for towing, this is the best option. Coming soon, there's going to be a few range-extended electric trucks on the market, and they'll be the more convenient choice for towing, but they don't exist yet, so for now, this is the best option. And it was really not a pragmatic decision for me to buy this thing, but it's just an experience that I wanted to have, and I also wanted to share that experience with you and use those experiences to help educate y'all, because there's a lot of misinformation and oversimplification going around about electric trucks and electric trucks towing. To that end, the next video I'll be making with this thing, it will be more in-depth about electric towing, what effects range the most, how much it costs, etc. And then the video that I make after that will be the experience of electric towing over a long distance. I'll be taking some car to some place that's very far away so you can see what that experience is actually like. Until then, thank you for watching.